All right, so get this. What if I told you there's a tech out there that wants to be the information equivalent of like those little oxygen masks, the ones that drop down on airplanes, like instantly delivering the exact info you need right when you need it without you even asking?
Intrigued.
Oh, absolutely. And that's exactly what we're diving into today, Sonad. They're talking about like changing the game when it comes to how we consume information, from radio to lectures, even just reading a magazine. We've got their website explainer articles, even their Q&A ready to dissect. But first, their big idea.
So SONAD's selling point. They want to make information flow as seamlessly as music through your headphones. No more frantic Googling, no more pausing to jot down notes.
Okay, that's a bold claim. Tell me more about the how.
They're calling these packets of information sonas. Imagine them, like little digital care packages, you know, filled with everything from text and video to audio snippets and web links. And here's the kicker. You're not just getting a boring URL. You're getting a full-blown multimedia experience delivered straight to your phone.
So instead of just like reading a movie review, I could be watching trailers and behind-the-scenes clips. That's wild. But how do they actually get these sonas to me?
They've got two main avenues. First, they're embedding sound codes directly into audio. Think radio ads, podcasts, even things like museum audio guides. These sound codes are totally silent to our ears, but your phone picks them up and knows exactly what sona to deliver.
Almost like a secret handshake, but for information. I like it. What's the other method?
Good old-fashioned QR codes. Scan one in a magazine at a conference or even on a product display, and boom, sona delivered.
Okay, I'm starting to see the potential here, but let's ground this with an example.
All right, close your eyes and imagine this. You're at a concert, totally lost in the music. Suddenly your phone buzzes. You glance down, and it's a notification. A sona from the band offering a limited-time discount on merch just for people at the show.
Now that's what I'm talking about. And that's just one scenario. We're talking about potentially transforming everything from education to advertising. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's look at how SONAD is actually being tested in the real world.
Okay. Yeah. From concert merch to museum tours, we're definitely getting a feel for the possibilities. But let's bring this back down to earth for a sec. Where is SONAD actually being, put to the test?
They've chosen Stony Brook University as their testing ground, which, strategically speaking, is pretty savvy.
A university. That makes sense. Lots of information flying around, tech-savvy students. But how is it actually being used on campus?
They're running trials across the board. Think admissions information for prospective students, campus event updates, even supplemental materials in lecture halls. Remember those history lectures where you're scribbling down notes trying to keep up?
Oh, tell me about it.
Imagine a world where the professor mentions a specific treaty and boom, a sona pops up on your phone with the full text, historical context, even maps of the regions involved. Talk about a game changer for studying, and maybe even for keeping those lectures a bit more engaging. But there's one use case that really caught my eye. The medical office example, SONAD, is talking about embedding patient information in these sonas that could be accessed in an emergency.
Now that's where things get really interesting and maybe a little bit a Minority Report. Picture this. An ambulance arrives at an accident scene. Instead of waiting for patient records, paramedics could potentially use SONAD to instantly access vital information, allergies, medications, pre-existing conditions. Talk about life-saving seconds.
I can see the appeal, but part of me can't help but think, is this getting a little too sci-fi?
It's a fair point. There are definitely some big questions about security and privacy. After all, if a sona can be picked up by any phone with the app, how do you make sure the wrong people don't get their hands on sensitive medical information?
It's a serious concern. And it makes you wonder, is this technology moving faster than our ability to fully grasp the implications? It's definitely a lot to unpack. But before we dive deeper into the potential pitfalls, remember that extra source we mentioned, the resume.
Yes. Let's talk about the mastermind behind SONAD.
Because it turns out the founder, Lev Nemotin, has a background that's, well, let's just say it's not your typical tech startup story.
Intrigued.
Understatement of the year. We're talking about a guy with a PhD in nuclear engineering.
It does seem like a bit of a head-scratcher at first. What does building power plants have to do with sending invisible sound codes to your smartphone? But when you think about it, the connection becomes a little clearer.
Okay, I'm all ears. Connect the dots for me.
Think about the kind of expertise you need to work in nuclear engineering. You're dealing with incredibly complex systems, massive amounts of data, and the absolute need for precision and safety.
Now that you mention it, those sound like pretty valuable skills for developing any kind of cutting-edge technology, especially one that's handling information on this scale.
Exactly. The emoticon's background might seem unexpected, but it speaks to the fact that innovation often comes from looking at problems from a different angle, bringing in knowledge from seemingly unrelated fields.
It makes you wonder if he's hiding a nuclear reactor somewhere in the SONAD headquarters.
Okay, bad jokes aside, we've talked about the how and the who behind SONAD. Let's get to the why, their big vision for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Their website keeps using this phrase, non-interrupting advertising. Basically, they're saying users will be more open to ads if they're delivered in this seamless, integrated way right alongside content they actually want.
It's a bold claim. They're betting on a future where advertising becomes less of an annoyance and more of a value exchange. You get access to this incredible stream of information, and in return, you're willing to engage with a few carefully curated ads.
I can see the logic there. After all, who enjoys being bombarded with irrelevant ads? But it does make you wonder, even if it's less intrusive, are we just talking about a more subtle form of information overload? That's the million-dollar question. And it's something for each of us to consider as this technology develops. Are we comfortable with this constant flow of targeted information? Or will we reach a point where we crave those moments of digital silence, those opportunities to disconnect?
It's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? On one hand, the possibilities are incredibly exciting, but on the other, there's some serious questions we need to ask ourselves about the trade-offs we're making.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this technology so fascinating. It's not just about bits and bytes. It's about how we interact with the world around us.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of SONAD, I'll leave you with this. If this takes off, what will it mean for how we learn, how we consume entertainment, even how we experience our daily lives? Will it be a symphony of information or just more noise? That, my friend, is for you to decide.